see. I'm gonna have to edit it. Let me pop in there. It's trial and error.
Right. That's the journey right there.
Mm-hmm. All right. We're here. Edit this.
I hit my vape. Is it okay if I hit my vape every now and then?
I do. I do it. They know me. They know I'm the vapor. We're the vape queens.
I love our expression of spirituality. It's so relaxed.
Oh, I know. I loved I think it was one of the live streams that you did like not that long ago. And you were talking about being on the treadmill and then hitting your vape.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I was like, yep, me too. Me too. All right, let me find your YouTube channel. Like you. All right, now I think I'm cooking with gas.
So what do you do? Stream it on like unlisted and then switch it?
I think so. It's public now.
Oh, okay.
You're already public. This is what me and Rob do. We just like sit here. It's like this little behind the scenes action.
Real world, real life stuff, man.
We're a little messy, but in the best of ways. Which is fine. We'll give people a couple minutes to roll on in.
Yeah, let me see if I got a notification.
Notifications are kind of iffy sometimes.
I know, YouTube, man. I be hitting the button over and over again. All notifications, YouTube. All notifications.
I know, it gives me alerts for stuff I don't want alerts on, and then it doesn't alert me when I want to know stuff.
Okay, let's see. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, cool. We made it.
I think we made it. Okay, praise the good Lord. Other divine comfort. I was like, where is he? All right. Okay, good. All right. We have, all right. Hi, uppercase. Danny's here. Hi, Danny. We got Patrick, Real Karuk. Got Mrs. Lincoln's. We got Everlong. Hey, Everlong. Hi, guys. I think we're on a bit of a lag, too.
Come on, I am officially in the B community.
Yes, guys, hello. Sorry, you got a little, it was my first time Zoom streaming. I was telling Brooke before that I give Rob so much credit because I did not realize how difficult it was to set up this thing. I had to contact Zoom support. It was a whole thing. So big props to Rob's Tarot because he's always carrying the Zoom weight when me and him do streams. But I wanted to introduce you guys today to Miss Brooke from Empress of Duality. She has been on YouTube since before I have been on YouTube, and ain't nobody giving her the flowers that she deserves. I assure you that. But she is one of the very few twin flames that I know of that are in union. I actually found her through Water Baby Tarot. So, you know, she's tried and true. You know, she's got some credentials behind her. But if you wanted to take a couple minutes, Brooke, and introduce yourself to the Beehive.
Yeah, well, first off, Lauren, thank you again. I already told you this behind the scenes, but thank you again for opening this space and welcoming me into the beautiful bee community. One of the beautiful things about kind of having this connectedness with spirit is I was able to feel into the community that Lauren's created, and shout out to you guys. Really beautiful energy. So, as for me, I am a twin flame in union. I did identify as a divine masculine within the connection for a while, but you do get to a certain point in your journey where you really see the interconnectedness and the oneness where you can't be one without the other, even if you're dominantly a masculine energy or a feminine energy. It kind of, that illusion of the separation kind of starts to fade away, you know? So now when I go to say I'm the divine masculine within my connection, it's like, I feel like I'm lying a little bit because my soul knows there's really no separation there, right? But it's been about almost 2 years now that I've been with my twin in union, living in the same house in a completely different country. Shout out to Canada, okay? And it's been quite the journey where, you know, me and him started off doing tarot. We did a coaching business for a bit, a mentorship, which was really, really expansive and taught us a lot. But the work when you're in union, man, it really called us to kind of take a step back from clients and readings and energy work and like putting our energy outside of the union. It really took us nurturing the union and finding a way to merge our energy. But finally, I've gotten to a point where we building the empire, baby. Okay, empire of neutrality is here. So I've started back doing my readings. I got personal readings on sale for $40, and we're just gonna ease our way back into the spiritual community.
Northern Comfort Tarot, that's Danny.
Yes, my
Danny's in
beloved
the house.
twin flame, supporting us in the chat. He's so sweet.
And just as an individual too, Brooke, you have been through such an amazing journey. Growing up in North Carolina, you said too?
Yes.
North Carolina, and all the struggles that you had and all the challenges that you've overcome. Like, I think you are really quite a beautiful example of like a triumphant woman in so many ways. And you are a twin flame and you are a tarot reader, but I think that you're so much more than that. You have such a wide catalog of skills. Is like the only way. They're almost showing me like a menu, like in terms of your singing and what you do with frequencies, what we were talking about yesterday, and the meditations. If you guys ever go on her channel and you look at the live stream she's done, she has these gorgeous visions that come to her and these really profound revelations that come. Spirit just really speaks through her, and the revelation she's gotten from Jesus about like all the different energies and how to preserve your safe and your sacred space. It's just like, it really is incredible, like what a vessel that she actually is. It's truly like a triumphant woman in so many ways, especially when we're talking about the rise of the divine feminine and about toxic femininity. And you and I spoke a lot yesterday about how we both had to work through a lot of those toxic feminine traits in order to get to a point where we could sit here as two like empowered, independent women holding space and uplifting each other, because a lot of women can't do that, especially in the spiritual realm. You would think as spiritual people, everyone is like high-fiving and cheering each other on, but you people would really be surprised at the underbelly of competition and like nefarious intentions that get really thrown at people, especially by the women. I don't feel as though the spiritual men in the community really have that kind of discourse like a lot of the women do. And it takes a lot of evolution. It takes a lot of personal growth in order to find like really aligned women in the community to be able to support each other in the growth, healing, and ascension journey.
Absolutely. And I think that was one thing that was challenging for me when I started my YouTube channel was I would go into the spiritual community and look up twin flames and the twin flame journey and the mission and the purpose. And, you know, I will admit a lot of the information did give me kind of like some building blocks. But then when I started to express my own unique interpretation of the twin flame journey, I almost felt misunderstood again, you know, and that was something that I dealt with for so much of my life was just like my family misunderstood me, my partners misunderstood me, I misunderstood myself, I was rejected in ways, judged in ways, and same thing internally, you know, rejecting myself, feeling unworthy, all those little things. So when I did get to sit down with Jesus and really talk to him about like what the twin flame journey was, And then sharing that on my YouTube channel, it's almost like I really had to accept that, okay, I'm going to be speaking about the twin flame journey a little bit differently. It's not going to be like this clout kind of thing where I can go on and talk about all of the things that everyone else talks about. And like I was resistant to that because it's like, oh, but those are the things that people want to hear. They want to hear that it's this fantastic, magical, sacred connection. But the truth that I found is that there is sacred love in all connection. And I think the first bridge to really exploring the twin flame journey and its purpose is to do things just like me and you are doing right now, where you can bridge that separation even within the feminine collective, right?
Mhm.
You know? So I'm really excited to talk about some of the divine feminine traits that I have discovered upon my journey, as well as the toxic femininity. That way, having a conscious conversation about it. For one, we kind of get to be each other's mirrors. And two, we get to explore it in a different way that doesn't leave you obsessed about the twin flame journey, doesn't leave you putting the twin flame journey on a pedestal. And I know some of y'all are probably like, this girl's a twin flame, but she's sitting here like kind of putting the twin flame down. And it's not that, it's just within the spiritual community, it's on such a pedestal where like people even denounce soulmates, if you want to call them that, as like a lesser love. And baby, that's just not true. If there's anything that Jesus taught me, is that love is love. And if you can't appreciate the love of a sister, the love of a brother, the love of a friend, the love of a soulmate, then how can you be able to receive a sacred love that we like to label as a twin flame connection?
Mhm. Absolutely. And yesterday we were talking about as well about so how often we put all different kinds of labels on ourselves all the time. I'm a light worker. I'm a this. I'm a sister. I'm a husband. I'm a teacher. And we end up by trying to break out of the matrix and go through these spiritual journeys, trying to bust out of boxes. We only end up then giving ourselves brand new labels, putting ourselves in a box that we just tried to break out of society. And we do the same thing with love. Oftentimes people will use twin flame unions and they'll use it as an excuse to promote codependency or toxicity as a mirror or within oneself. And they'll use it to hold on to situations that are not in alignment for them anymore. And I find so often, and for me personally, the thing that was really the big catalyst for me starting my journey with spirituality is that I thought I had met a twin flame, and it wasn't. It was a false thing, right? It was a mirror of my karma. And you could not tell me at that time that that person was not my counterpart. And you know what they were? They were a perfect counterpart to my karma. And there, and there was I was like, he is a karmic and this and that. And I had to really and it took me a long time, but I had to address the toxic femininity within me and go, no, Lauren, you're the karmic. You're all the karmic. All three of us are the karmic in this situation. These are three very codependent, sick people, and everyone needs to go their own ways and work on themselves. And it took years to really rework that programming. And as we were talking about yesterday, I realized it was so much of a reflection of what I was taught when I was young, the way that we're nurtured as young women, as opposed to what our true nature is, on how to take things like our looks and our sacred sexuality, and instead of allowing it to be a point of pure empowerment and expression, instead use it in a way that can be manipulative. Yep. Use it in a way that can draw in things, because as you said yesterday so beautifully, pure feminine energy, it's magnetic, it's hypnotizing, right? It is the reception of it. And so when you're not in alignment, and this applies to the feminine energy within males too, but when it's not in alignment, you can end up pulling so much in, even things that are bad for you, right? And it'll keep you on these really toxic negative cycles around and around. We both know spirit's got no problem sending your ass around that merry-go-round a million times before you finally get it in your head that there's something wrong. There's not something wrong with everyone else. There might be something wrong in here. Like there might be something wrong with what you're thinking, the way you're approaching things, the way you're expressing yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of how I felt, you know, I used to be a bartender and a waitress, and all the women, you know, they would gang up on me, man. Like, no bullshit. It was facts. Like, I would see these bitches talking crap about me. I would see them spreading rumors. They would start drama, and it was everywhere I went. And I remember my dad, he would look at me and he'd be like, Brock, you know, the common denominator is you. And I didn't want to hear that, you know, because on the outside, I was trying to be, you know, cooperative and like promote positivity and support. But what I didn't understand until I awakened to spirit was that my internal dialogue, my internal relationship, my internal feelings, you know, that was all the foundation for the relationships that I experienced with women, you know. So years, man, years and years and years, I experienced just this toxic feminine energy where like we just could not come together in harmony. We couldn't support each other. We couldn't be proud of each other's successes. It was always a competition or putting one another down. There was like this always this energy dynamic where for me to succeed, I have to put you down. You know, and I'm so glad that I get to not be a part of that. But when I was going through it, man, I remember there were nights where like I would just feel so defeated and like what's wrong with me? Like why don't women give me a chance? Like why do women hate me? Why is it that I have all of these guy friends and then women judge me for that? And so when it comes to the divine feminine and the toxic femininity, spirit did give me a few like traits, a way to recognize whether you are embodying divine feminine, sacred feminine energy, or if you're on more of the toxic femininity side. And I love this because in our mind, we need like stepping stones. The psyche does. It's an evolutionary process of shifting your neural pathways to perceive and receive information differently. So having just these little key points of, and then building upon those internally for what they mean for you, right? So the way spirit described the divine feminine energy is like the conscious observer, right? And then the divine masculine energy as the conscious creator. So the flip side or toxic femininity would be the unconscious absorber. You know what that means, ladies? Taking every fucking thing personally, from work, from friends, from your exes, past relationships, what people that don't even know you got to say about you, and just taking it all personally and accepting it as your truth. It's almost like someone offers you some poison and you're accepting it and putting it into your body, right? So then another trait for the divine feminine would be the being emotionally secure. So the flip side, if you are seeking emotional validation from other people, you know, I feel like women, just because of the history of energy dynamics that have been perpetuated over time with women, is you have to provide something for the masculine to be valuable, right? So one of the first steps for a feminine is to understand that, oh, no matter if I am drop dead gorgeous or a hot ass mess, like I am worthy of love. And then that putting that boundary in place with the world around you. We're going to get to that. There's two more little attributes that came through, and then I would love to hear what you have to say, Lauren. So the divine feminine energy, empowered, would go with the flow of things. So this means embodying an act of surrender. It's a mastery key step on your spiritual awakening journey to be able to accept and embrace where you are and to go with the flow of things, right? So on the flip side, the toxic femininity would be one that tries to maintain control of things. And usually, ladies, that's going to lead to burnout or overwhelm. So if that's something that you see happen in your life consistently, where either you're overwhelmed with pressure or you're just cracking and drained. So, the first thing that you could kind of step into is just like, oh, okay, this is where I'm at right now. This is what I can do right now. And I am completely lovable if I can get this done, and if I can't be that, right? And then the last thing, which is honestly one of the most important, is the sacred feminine energy is the nurturer. She takes time to nurture the psyche, takes time to nurture the emotional body. So that means in the chaos of the divine masculine that's always doing, building, creating, dismantling, reconstructing, taking the time to sit in the stillness of spirit. And I do want to throw out real quick, because this may be a little different from the things that you guys have heard. When I speak of the divine feminine or the divine masculine, the way it came through for me is the divine feminine is like the portal to source. It is your soul, it is spirit, where the divine masculine represents the human, the man, and humanity. And the union of those two creates this bridge of unity consciousness, of twin flame union, that really creates a really beautiful balance and harmony. So, on the flip side of the sacred feminine energy for nurturing the self, is making your emotions other people's responsibility or blaming others for how you feel. I used to do this, straight up guilty over here. Like my ex, I feel bad for him, poor thing, because so much of how I felt inside, I made it his responsibility. If I was sad, if I was bored, if I was angry, if I was jealous, that was a hard one for me. Jealousy, okay? So, yeah. Anyways, go ahead, Lauren.
I love everything that you said. I had done a shadow work in real time video a few months ago. Yeah, maybe it was like a month ago. Because so many people ask us what shadow work is, and so much of working through any toxic feminine or toxic masculine, right? And there's almost like it is toxic because it's unhealthy, right? It doesn't serve you, it doesn't grow you, it doesn't make your situation any better. But sometimes when we say the word toxic, people go immediately, they get offensive, right?
Not me.
It's that, not me. No. It's the girl, but it ain't me, honey. Like, but there's something about how triggers are our biggest teachers. And in that video, I was talking about safety being such a prominent thing for women, and safety being such a big thing for me as a young girl growing up, that as I got older, I purposefully sought out men that seemed like they really had their shit together. They were alpha males. They were all these things, because for me, it was a form of safety. But in order to earn that, like you said, I had to provide something. So a lot of that was domesticity, cooking, clean it. And I love to make a pie and vacuum the house. Like, I love that shit. But there was like an exchange for services there, whether it was sexual thing, like there was always like something that I had to give, I had to provide in order to earn that safety, right? Which still always left me feeling unstable, because my safety, my happiness, my stability was always something that was outside of me. And women are conscious observers. Women are a vessel. If you think about how powerful women are, we are the only human beings, we're like the only mammals that can bring through pure spirit energy through us into a human existence. That is powerful. That is impactful, right? So we are natural receivers. And there's a thing that we have where we think femininity, and this is also the thing that's really jacked up a lot of the masculine energies, right? Which is why while the divine feminine now is really empowered and really rising up like a phoenix, the masculine energies are really in very much of a healing state right now, right? It's a little bit of a Freaky Friday, like a little bit of a role reversal, because they've always been taught that femininity and softness and passivity means powerless, right? It means weak. And so for us as women, weakness and powerlessness, that means a lack of security. That means a lack of safety. And women, of course, have always had historically to worry about their safety for a lot of reasons. And the only way we could be safe or stable is to have a partner, right? And so there is this very historical, almost this generational feminine toxicity that has bled its way through century and century and century through society that we don't even realize, right? We think, oh, it's just my mom, or oh, it's just me. But this is also something that's been bred into us for centuries, generation after generation, right? You know, up until 19, you couldn't vote, you couldn't buy property. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. You even look at Mary Magdalene, like we were talking about yesterday. Everyone likes to remember her like she was just a prostitute, as if she wasn't a landowner, a whole ass landowner. But what is she known for? Her sexual activities before she like came upon Jesus. Like, it's absolutely mind blowing that we identify ourselves the same way that society has always identified us, right? And women, we're supposed to be receptive, but when we're constantly, like you said, externalizing everything, my feelings don't belong to me, they belong to someone else. So if they get hurt, it's someone else's problem. If there's an issue with me, it's because it's not for me, someone else did this to me. It's this very unconscious martyrdom that lies within the feminine psyche, which can cause them to do, as you say, go into burnout, go into control, fighting, grasping at straws, trying to do the absolute most, which is where then you get these women that go, I don't need no man, like I got my own bills paid, right? And it's not like from a sense of confidence, like empowerment, like a sense of, you know, calm, peaceful security, like, no, like I got it covered. Like I take care of my stuff and that's good. And I'm proud of myself and I'm independent. No, it's almost an act of rebellion against the patriarchy, right? It's that I don't need no man, men ain't shit. And like I said in the live stream I did a few days ago, so often we're talking about like men ain't shit, but it's like maybe there's some stuff going on in here that's like not it either, baby. Like that's a thing too, that if you're using your femininity as an act of rebellion against the patriarchy, a rebellion against the masculine energy, in a way, you're kind of playing yourself because you have masculine energy too, right? So if you're someone that identifies as like heteronormative, whatever masculines you are attracting, that's representative of your own masculine energy that you have going in here. So it's really about creating a kind of symbiosis and equilibrium inside. And that doesn't start by externalizing everything to everyone else. You have to take full ownership of who you are and why that is, because, you know, as a spiritual community, oftentimes we can spiritually bypass. Everything is a projection or a reflection, but sometimes people go through things like abuse. And that's not a reflection of your inner state when you're a kid, right? The way your parents nurture you, that's a reflection of how they were nurtured, right? That's not a reflection of you on the inside. So sometimes we have to admit that, hey, shit happens. And sometimes bad things happen, but it's what I do with that. It's taking my healing. I can't take control of other people, but I can take control of my healing journey. I can start it. I can recognize that there's some stuff going on in here. And I keep replaying it in different places with different faces over and over again. And I am, as you said, I am the common denominator in all of my situations. So logically, that must mean that I'm also the common solution. So that is where the surrender to spirit comes in and go, okay, where do I start? Where do I start this process? It's not an overnight. It's not like a 4-day kind of thing. It's a journey. Self-love is a journey. It never ends. It will go on from this life to the next and onwards and upwards.
And you know what is so paradoxical about the whole thing is that for the divine feminine to step into empowerment, she relies on her masculine to implement it, right? So you can think of feminine as like the portal to source, right? Spirit, your internal world, while the masculine is the one that takes that inspired action of creating that internal world externally, right? So to dismiss the masculine, it really, how do I say this? I feel like a lot of twin flames, they perpetuate this storyline of I am doing all the work. You know, I'm doing all the healing. They need to show up. They need to do better. They need to change this. They need to do that. And it's just like, it shows a lack of responsibility for, you know, how you feel in your own life. And we're going to get into it a little bit deeper, but I think it's really important to understand that just like with spirit, here's how they gave it to me. Spirit has no control over what Brooke decides to do. Spirit can say, Brooke, don't eat that cake. That sugar is going to make you have anxiety, or it's not going to make you feel good. It's not good for your body. Don't eat the cake, Brooke. And I could say, fuck you, spirit. I want to eat the cake. You know what I'm saying? And it's like the same thing with the masculine and the feminine, right? Where you can do all this internal work, all of this internal healing, but it honestly, and this is a bittersweet truth, but it honestly does not make a fuck if you don't practice it, if you don't implement it, if you don't act in it, if you don't stand in that integral state of being within your life and with other people, right? So I kind of want to give a few examples because that really helps me on my journey. It's hard for an awakening soul to really know what all of these spiritual things mean without kind of having something to reference, to look at in our own lives, right? To kind of bounce off of. So when it comes to the toxic femininity, an example of toxic feminine energy would be anything that diminishes or poisons the inner self. So, for example, this could be like obsessive thoughts and constantly running this internal dialogue of lack, of victim mentality, storylines, of self criticism that are not constructive, right? We can take constructive criticism from self. That's a healthy thing. It's actually very balanced to be able to observe yourself neutrally and kind of evolve, right? That's the journey, baby, right? Okay. So, another example could be like limiting self beliefs that are a product of unworthiness dialogues. Or one of my favorites is this: if I just had that, then I would be happy, right? That's
Mhm.
one of my favorite ones. So, another example of kind of how to recognize this toxic feminine energy, because let me tell you, it has flown underneath the radar for a really long time, right? So the first step in shifting anything is to be able to catch the trigger, to observe neutrally and be able to recognize when you are embodying a state of being that is a disservice to yourself or that is empowering, right? So, another example would be negative emotional response patterns. And this can show up many ways. But to give you a few examples, this could come up as a lack of self expression, which is really hard for the feminine at times. Women are known for expressing their emotions. However, if a woman does not feel safe internally or with someone they are with, they're not going to express their truth or their vulnerability. It's always going to be a little bit of a distorted truth, half truth, if you will. Or needing others to validate your value, to feel good about yourself. That's like a gift that you give yourself. And when it comes to the negative emotional response patterns, this is one of the most challenging patterns to break. I, for me personally, and through working with other clients, it's this it's almost like you can be sitting there in a negative emotion, right? Nostalgia, you're missing your twin, loneliness, unworthiness, unfulfillment, self shame for things that you've done or things that you haven't done yet, right? And you're just sitting in that emotion. And what women tend to do, and this is where it's very different from men. When men feel negative emotion, they're probably just gonna check out, right? But women, we have been taught to, the divine feminine has been taught to take that shame, take that guilt, take that nostalgia, that sadness, that loneliness, and just perpetuate it inside. And just sit in that negative emotion and just build it. And then every like 15 seconds, let's say, that you're thinking these negative stories that are producing really negative emotions, it's just at every 15 seconds, you're just building it and building it and building it. That's energy work, you guys. Okay. When you're setting the intention to think about something like that and you're drawing that energy in and you're pulling it in and you're harnessing it and you're holding on to it, perpetuating that state of unfulfillment within can just be detrimental to the feminine energy because it's abuse, it's self-abuse, right? So we see a lot of people and a lot of women do that instead of just making the conscious choice to shift or discharge the emotion with self-love or TLC, right? And what happens is this internal distress that we just keep perpetuating, right? Women have been taught to self-punish. That's what it is. Punish yourselves, police yourselves so that we don't have to, right? And it's like a social, I don't know, stigma. I don't know if that's the word, where like women will do that. We will punish other women, you know, we will police other women into being the way that we were conditioned to show up as women, weak, soft, whatever, right? And what happens is this internal distress becomes the inspiration for your behavior towards other people. And you can think of the divine feminine as spirit or the GPS system for the masculine. So when you're perpetuating these internal distress patterns, emotional distress patterns, that is where your masculine energy gets the inspiration, the blueprint, if you will, for the action that you take and the way that you behave with other people. And I'd like to give it to you, Lauren, if you would like to add anything to that.
I love so much when you talk about catching these triggers, because you said that and immediately they said fly ball in my head. Literally, it's like catching a fly ball like midair and like stopping and looking at it. And something that I've been talking about on the channel for a little bit now is looking at yourself with curiosity as opposed to criticism. Because as you said, like so often we do self-punish ourselves. We abuse ourselves because we feel like we deserve it. And in some way, it's almost like a self-chastisement, as if somehow it's going to make you cleaner or more righteous, or it's going to make you a better person if like you suffer, right? There's something about like a sacred suffering that women feel as though they have to perpetuate amongst themselves and amongst other women, right? It's the same thing as you were saying about how we police and patrol other women. Oh, you shouldn't be wearing that. Oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Oh, you shouldn't. And that's a trigger point. And like even me, like I've come across like a few women energy workers, like when I first started my journey, and I thought that girl fucking triggers me. Like, why? Like, I was like, why she gotta like, put all out there like that? Like, why she gotta do that? And like they said to me, they're like, Lauren, why don't you think about that for a second? What about that triggers you so much? Mm-hmm. Is it the fact that she is confident and secure in her sexuality and her personal expression? Why aren't you? Why aren't you, Lauren? Why are you trying to police her and trying to act like you're so righteous and morally upright because you're not out here talking about things like sex and like sex magic and like all of this stuff? What is about that triggers you, that it's something that you're not expressing, that you feel like you put yourself in a little prison with your own sacred sexuality and your own personal expression, and now you're trying to police her? Why are you doing that? Where did you get the idea that that part of you was bad or it was dirty? Like, why are you kind of keeping yourself in this prison and then trying to kind of run around and energetically police other people? I was like, you're putting judgment on that person. And I was like, I didn't even realize I was doing that. I was like, I'm so sorry, right? And when I met that girl, I was like, I don't know, I don't like her. And then after I worked through that energy, I ended up loving her. I adore her. She's amazing. She is like such a badass, like that fiery Aries energy. But I had to work through that negative aspect in me in order to appreciate the positive aspect of her. So I had to catch that trigger moment like a fly ball in midair and look at myself with curiosity as opposed to criticism, instead of beating myself up and going, oh, Lauren, you're such a judgmental bitch. Like, what's your problem? Because that's something that we do to ourselves all of the time. And I had to go, no, okay, well, let's back it up there, LB. Like, let's figure out like where is that coming from? And I realized, like very similar to you said, that stemmed from something that I had done in my past that I was still shaming myself for. I was let go of that situation. I asked for forgiveness. I repented, I did the work, but somehow I was still shaming myself. And so when I saw someone acting in such a way that reflected a way that I used to act and then felt bad about, it really like threw me off. So I had to really wind that tape back and find out where that idea even came from, right? And within the feminine and masculinities with us, is exactly like you said, the feminine is the receptacle. It's the receiving, which is an incredibly vulnerable position to be in. And so often when it comes to expressing your emotions, women feel very vulnerable, right? And so we lean so heavily onto our masculine side, and we work and we strive and we put up these barriers. And something I've been talking about a lot on the channel as well is, you know, checking your standards and your boundaries. Because so often we talk about having healthy boundaries. Like you got to set the boundary. Like you got to set a standard for yourself. It's got to be out of self-worth. It's got to be out of self-love. But so often we actually build walls between us and other people, right? And then we say it's, it's because I know my worth. And it's, or are you afraid of the vulnerability of other people seeing you as imperfect, as not having everything all together? So this wall that you built, you're calling it a boundary out of self-love, but really it's a wall of separation and isolation. And it's coming from a place of unworthiness. Because if people were to get too close to you and see you in all of your glory and all of your gore at the same time, they wouldn't love you. And so that means you won't love you anymore. Why are you putting whether or not you are lovable or you are valuable or you are needed or you are impactful in someone else's hands? Because if you do that, then they can take it away. And then you're left just like you were in the 8th grade when that kid didn't ask you to dance. Like it's the same thing. And when you wind that tape back, you realize, shit, I've been doing this my whole entire life. From the first crush I had in kindergarten up until like I was 28 years old. And then you go, well, no wonder spirit has kept me single for so long, because I had 30 years of shit to unpack, right? And so a lot of people, they get on this spiritual journey and they think this is going to lead me to my soulmate. This is going to lead me to my twin flame. And really what it does, and they get so frustrated, they're like, Lord, why have I been single so long? Like, I don't understand. Like, and they don't realize that the journey has always been back to self. It's always been back to you, baby, right? To look at yourself with curiosity. Wow. Because you may find some things that you're not really super happy with in here, but you also might find some things that are extraordinary, that are impactful, that are profound about you. And you would have never found those bright places inside unless you went through the dark corners as well. You got to go from the basement all the way up to the attic, the side rooms. You got to go in the cupboards. You got to look at yourself, because we are complex. We are cornucopias of emotions and experiences and sensations and visions. And when you think about that, in terms of like the female form and what we're able to do with our bodies and bring life in, that we sync up to the moon, like the ocean, like the ebbs and the flows. You think about that in that perspective and go, wow, why wouldn't I love myself? I'm incredible. I'm a little messy. I'm a little chaotic, but you know what? So is the sea. And then all of a sudden you have like this real sacred feeling of pride, like a real divine feeling of like self-awareness that's not coming purely from the ego. And it doesn't feel the need to control other people. And in a lot of ways, it doesn't even feel the need to control yourself, but to look at yourself as almost like a form of clay, perfect as it is, but able to be molded and shaped into anything that you see fit, that feels good for you in that moment. And that goes back into pouring into the vessel. How do I want to express myself? Like, how do I want to be? Like, are there aspects of myself that I'm dimming? Do I have a lot of fire, right? I'm someone that, girl, I have a lot of fire in my chart. I'm a very fiery person. And so for a long time, that always was very intimidating to people, or that got me in trouble. And that made me swallow my emotions, and it made me very quiet, and it made me very soft, but in a very submissive way, because I have a lot of softness and I have a lot of sweetness to me. But I realized that I was purposefully making myself submissive a lot of times in these relationships, so I wouldn't cause a problem, so I could earn my love, so I could earn my safety, so I could earn trust and all of that stuff. But because there were still all of these unrecognized things in me, sooner or later, like a tea kettle, I was going to blow off some steam, like one way or another. And these are behaviors, right? These are those things that you were talking about these negative self-talk, negative patterns of behavior that we don't realize that we do, and the cause and effect that it really causes in our lives. That's why self-awareness is so important. We always talk so much about mindfulness and consciousness. And I said it in a stream the other day, Emmy Evolving, she made this beautiful point the other day, and she was talking about, it's really not about consciousness. It's about being aware of your consciousness, right? Because not all thoughts are yours, and you don't have to claim them all the time, and you don't have to build your life up. You can, a conscious observer, see them pass by and go, I don't want to identify with that thought anymore or that feeling anymore. And using your free will, whether to eat cake or whether to take that idea and let it plant a seed in your mind, right? It'll come in, but you don't have to own it and plant it in your soil. And when you become a conscious co-creator, you can decide how you want to tend to your own garden and what you want to grow in it for that season, for that harvest, right? Which really gives you that healthy, very divine sense of control, because you're a conscious creator, right? And you're not an oblivious bulldozer, just kind of blindly running around. And so it really is, it's a very fine line distinction. And it's easy for all of us to kind of misstep a little bit on one side, right? But when you're aware of yourself and taking your temperature and loving yourself, then you can check in and go, okay, what am I doing? Like, where is this coming from? And then you can move accordingly with your free will.
Absolutely beautiful, sis. So beautifully said. Like, yes. So one thing that I do that I kind of pinged on as you were talking, which is so much fun, by the way, when you kind of get to that point, other ladies out there, where you can connect with beautiful soul tribe, and there's just like this mutual respect and love that gives you the ability to open this channel where like spirit's just dropping all of this on top of us at the same time. And it's just really, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it feels so good in the body. I think that is actually, spirit wants me to mention that. That's another thing when it comes to really nurturing the divine feminine, is the body and paying attention. So the conscious observer is not limited to the mind and the emotions, but also the response and the reflection in the body. That's kind of what emotion is. It's energy and motion in the body, and kind of giving you your little cues for how you are internalizing things, right? So one thing I wanted to mention when it comes to the twin flame journey is that I have heard this storyline where, you know, you're not with your twin because you still need to heal, or you can't attract your twin because you still have work that you need to do. And I am here right now, Empress of Duality is showing up to tell you that is bullshit. You are 100% divine and 100% worthy, regardless of the baggage that you carry. The key to the union, the key to harmonizing within self, to be able to go on the journey of self-discovery, of self-healing, self-exploration, and then to have that with a partner, is putting the boundary in place that, you know, let's see. It's almost just like this commitment to loving yourself, you know, no matter what shadow comes up, no matter when you do something and you know that you shouldn't, you know that it's not good for you, but just choosing to love yourself anyways, that gives you the capacity to heal in ways that I'm speechless. You know what I mean? So this storyline that you have to do the work, that you have to heal to be able to get into union with your twin flame, is bullshit. All you have to do is commit to the journey, commit to self, commit to loving self. And that's really all of the building blocks, or the foundation that's needed to be able to do this work with someone else. But if you're constantly taking everything personal, you're constantly throwing your emotions at everybody else, you're constantly beating yourself up, you're constantly behaving in a way that isn't integral to who you are, you're constantly dumbing yourself down, or you know what I mean? Then no, you know, maybe it's not a good time for you to come together with anybody, because you're just going to perpetuate that. But if you have two souls, and they can be completely broken, that's what spirit said to me. They can be completely broken souls, if you want to call them that. But if they're willing to love themselves, they got it. They got the key to the journey, the keys to the kingdom, if you will, to come into union and create that harmony. So going back to the divine feminine and toxic femininity, One thing that Spirit really wants to make people aware of is that your feminine energy directly affects the divine masculine. And I remember when I got that channeling last night, it was 222 in the morning. 222 is about relationships, it's about harmony, it's about balance. So, really restructuring in your mind to understand that when you're working with your feminine, you're working with your masculine. When you're working with your masculine, you're working with your feminine. There is never a time where they are not flowing as one. Even in distortion, they're flowing as one. Even in the illusion of separation, they're flowing as one, right? And, the internal state of being that you embody, it becomes your vibrational set point or your core frequency from which you attract from. And if your internal world consists of destructive self talk, toxic emotions, or always feeling unhappy with yourself, unhappy with your life, always waiting for something or someone to come along and make you happy, that is toxic femininity, as you don't have the harmonious union of self love and self respect internally. Yet you are making it someone else's responsibility to make you happy, right? So, to be balanced and empowered in your sacred feminine energy, you must apply the energy through your masculine. So, just sitting there, always thinking of it from the linear perspective of, I'm just doing work with my feminine, isn't going to work, right? That's duality. You're looking for neutrality, right? That's where you want to flow in that oneness, because you can be all talk if you want to, but without action, baby, that's manipulation. You know what I'm saying? And that's toxic as fuck, right? So the illusion that the divine feminine and divine masculine are separate truly begins to crumble as you understand that they work directly together to create self empowerment and fulfillment, right? Which is a lot, man. And I know it is. I know it's a lot. And that's why it's important to have that balance where, like, you pick up the breadcrumbs that spirit leaves. You observe the triggers and you put it outside of you, because it's not who you are, right? So one thing spirit wants me to mention is within the twin flame community, there is the mirroring that happens, right? They're my divine reflection, my divine counterpart. They mirror my shadow, da 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 da. But what is, incredibly crucial to understand is that when it comes to the mirroring, so you could have created this harmony within yourself, and then your twins still don't show up. Your twins still acting like a fuckboy. Your twins still doing whatever. You can't take that as a mirror of your own energy, right? That's sacrificing yourself. So the mirror isn't what they're doing, what they're saying, but when they do what they do, and when they say what they say, what happens within you, baby, right? That is the mirror work. That's the reflection, not what you can see, the external world. And this is where it gets tricky, because when you first awaken, you're like, oh, as above, so below, as within, so without, right? Like everything that's outside of me is a reflection of my energy. Bullshit. You are on this world. You're in this world with, like, what, 7 billion other people. It's not all just a reflection of you and your ego, baby, right? And that's kind of like a very self-absorbed perspective on the world and the way divinity works through this human experience, right? So understanding that the mirror is not always validated externally, but when you can find the mirror within, how you're responding to things, how you're perceiving things, and how you feel internally, that is the real reflection of your vibrational set point, if you will, and where you are attracting from.
I love that. I love that so much. That completely goes into the spiritual bypassing thing that I was talking about earlier. Because so often we do that, right? And and there isn't you are a conscious co-creator. The universe, the divine, your angels, your guides, right? If it doesn't serve you, then it gets taken out, right? Like that's a really impactful position to be in as a human being, that like everything that is set up to serve you, right? To prosper you, to give you a hope, to give you a future, and all of these things. And so it's this real balance between this self-sacrificing nature that we have to constantly be giving and nurturing and be nurturing to the point of complete burnout and a full empty cup that's like rusted over. And then also fall into the other extreme, which is egoitism, right? Where it's like everything has to do with me and everything is that reflection of me. And, and I love so much about what you said, that if I just do all of my healing, my partner will show up, because that's such a thing that people say all the time. And then people get really upset. They get hurt with that statement because they're confused, because they go, I've done a lot of my healing. Like I did my inner child work. Like my shadow is part of the family now. Like I don't understand why this person's still not here. And they completely forget that sometimes Ecclesiastes, right? There's a season for everything. And, sometimes it's not, and I use the example all the time. I call it the cosmic stage. And I think I said it to you yesterday, that you could show up at dress rehearsal. You could do all of your inner work. You could be in your costume on that stage. But if the location of this set's not set up, if the other players on the board, if they didn't do their inner work, they don't know their lines, if the lights aren't on, that show, it can't go on, because it's got to come in perfect divine timing. And when we do that and you go, well, when I do all of my healing, well, honey, your healing's never done. Your inner child, right? There's levels and there's layers to this thing. And that's another way that we externalize our happiness. Mm-hmm. Me and Rob Tarot, we always say that it's like putting a carrot on the stick. And I think you said it earlier as well. It's like, well, when I get to this point in my life, I'll be happy. When I get this person, then I'll be happy. When I get to this level, I make this much money, I start looking like this. Once this comes in, then I'll be happy. And I think something that's so profound about really balanced feminine energy is contentment. Mm-hmm. Peaceful, like peace really comes from contentment. I am more than what is required in this moment. I have more than I need. It doesn't mean you can't be ambitious. It doesn't mean that you can't have goals, because we're so all or nothing in this society, right? It's like, of course you can want more for yourself. It doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't make you, it's normal to want a connection, to want community, to want to be stable, to have your, finances healthy. All this stuff is really normal stuff. But if you can't sit in like a sacred stillness, in a place of like peace and contentment, that you are everything that you need, that you have everything that you need. And Shannon Yvette, the minister, she said this to me one day, and I think I said it to you yesterday. She goes, if I don't have it today, it means that I don't need it today, right? Because that's the way that we control. And, and you hit that trigger where you're really lonely and you're like, I just need a person in my life to build with and share with, and then I'll be happy, right? And then you can take it and you can look at it with curiosity and you can observe it and go, hey, this is a trigger moment. I'm not alone. I'm just a little lonely. That's normal. I'm going to treat myself with love. I'm going to treat myself with a little compassion, but I'm also going to come down off the hill a little bit and put things in a perspective and remember divine timing, and remember that if I don't have it today, I might not need it today, because maybe what I need is to be comfortable with myself. So often as women, we're taught to constantly be nurturing other people. You have little girls acting like little moms to their little siblings. You always have that girl who's the friend or the mama in all of her friend groups. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You go to work and you end up taking more than your fair share of the work for everyone else, because maybe they're not going to do it, but you're the responsible one. You're the nurturing one. You're the one that people come and they emotionally dump on all of the time, right? And so you're constantly used to holding space and holding space and holding space for everyone else, that maybe your job right now is to hold space for yourself. To allow yourself to fall apart, and then also hold space so you can come back together at the same time. Maybe these seasons of singleness that so many people have and they really struggle with is that they don't know how to be with themselves. They're not comfortable with themselves. Those are oftentimes people that you find they can't ever be alone, or they can't go eat lunch by themselves, or they can't do anything like that. And there's nothing wrong with being social. I'd love to get lunch with my friends, right? But it's something about not feeling comfortable in your own energy. It's like sitting in a little bit of a void, right? And it's like the need to be able to fill oneself up with contentment, and be self-occupied and self-fulfilled, so that way people come or people go or people don't like your content or people don't think you're attractive, it doesn't take anything away from you, because you get your sense of validation from yourself. You get it from the divine, because you realize how extraordinary it is that you're even here statistically to begin with. And then when you see other people, someone acting like a fuckboy, some girl being crazy and possessive or competitive, or then you look at that and you have compassion for that. And you go, you know, I remember when I did that before I got to sit in this place of peace and contentment, when all of my happiness, when all of my validation was totally tied up in a man or a bank account or my Instagram, right? And then you go, wow, I don't even judge you. I have compassion for you because I recognize the shadow in you, because I recognize the shadow in me. And because I have compassion for that, I can have love in my heart for you too. And that, especially as women in communities, that's how we really start that cycle of healing. Because as you said before, so often we do police each other and we do judge each other and it's just a form of us doing it to ourselves, right? It's the have and the have-nots. It's McCarthy versus, McWorld. It's exclusionism. It's us or it's them, right? And that you have to lose, you have to be worse for me to be better. And that's not true. It's not true. And so often, again, in the spiritual community, like I said before, you see a lot of bad teachings from people, right? Doing the love coaching, doing the twin flame stuff, talking about, spirituality. And you look at some of these people and you go, how are you helping people on their self-love journey? It's like, I see so much competition in you. I see so much discourse in your spirit. And that's why mindfulness is so important as well. And to remember that you have to trust your intuition. You have to trust your angelic guidance. You have to trust yourself, because even in the spiritual community, we'll binge watch tarot readings. When are they coming? What are they doing? What do I do next? And we forget that we already have answers for ourselves. Any reading you ever get, it should only be confirmation for what you already know. But through society, we're trained not to trust ourselves, not to trust our intuition, your spiritual gifts and abilities. Hide them away. That's the devil's lettuce. Don't talk about it. That's strange. Be a good girl. Be quiet. Do what you're supposed to do. Well, that's what we're supposed to do. You do. You say what you're supposed to do, right? It's taking back that control. And when you say what you're supposed to do, that also means that you take accountability for what you're doing, right? Which makes you think a little bit more before you do something, or before you send an energy in someone's way, or before you practice self-abuse and negative self-talk on yourself as well. And you think to yourself, wow, would I say this to another person? No, that'd be so mean. That'd be so wretched. So why would you say it to yourself? And that makes you change your dialogue. Maybe that's me in the beginning of my journey. I used to be like, oh, Lauren, that's so stupid. And they go, why don't you try silly? All right, yeah, you know what? That wasn't stupid. I'm not stupid. That was silly. I could have thought a little bit more about that. That was a little silly. All right. Okay. I'm not stupid. I don't have to be mean to myself. And they used to say that to me in the beginning of my journey. Lauren, don't be mean to yourself. Why are you so mean to yourself all the time? I was like, I don't know. I'm so mean to myself. They're like, do you think that makes you really mean to other people? And I was like, I think I'm really nice to other people. They go, but in your head. I go, oh shit, you're right. And spirit is so kind with us, and spirit is so gentle with us. And like, again, following those breadcrumbs little by little by little. And they said to me before when you were talking, sometimes you have to make a mess in order to make order. It's like when you're trying to clear out drawers or clean out clothes, right? So often, you're like, how often do you take one piece of clothing and you go, Usually we just pull everything out on the floor and we just look at it. You go, these are my pants. These are my shorts. Like, and you just have everything in a mess on the floor. And it's very overwhelming when you start unpacking your emotions and all of these behaviors and all of these things. Is this me? Is this my parents? Is this society? Where is this coming from? And you just start looking at everything. You're like, I can't tell the mittens from the scarves, from the bikinis. I don't know what's going on here. But what do? You sit down on the floor. You go, okay. All right. And then you pick up one thing at a time and you do it in piecemeal. You handle it a breadcrumb at a time. And eventually you get there, which is why if you're waiting for you to be completely perfect, completely patched up, completely healed, you'll never get anywhere because you'll be so busy. Like it won't ever happen because it's always outside of you. And home is already in here.
Yes, beautiful. And one thing I kind of want to mention that you talked about was, when it comes to the divine masculine and his journey, if you want to look at it, because there's two ways you should always be looking at it. The divine masculine outside of you, right? Your twin flame, and then also the divine masculine that is yourself, right? So the key, man, to divine feminine energy and embodying it in a sacred way is to really start to restructure in the mind what the divine feminine represents. For me, it's been very helpful and transformational to look at spirit as the God self. I mean, to look at the divine feminine as the God self and the divine masculine as the human self, right? It really helps understand the multidimensionality of who we are, you know? So when the divine feminine can be compassionate with the masculine and where they are on their journey. It's like God. God doesn't criticize his children for the journey that they take, how long it takes them to do it, and how many times they fuck up. God never is angry. He's never rushing anybody. You know what I mean? It all like he has so much compassion and love for the human. The divine feminine has so much compassion and love for the masculine that there is this freedom in it. So baby, you want to explore what it's like to be with someone that abuses you? Go and explore it. Let me know what you find out. You know what I mean? We'll figure it out together. We'll put our puzzle pieces together when you come back, and allowing the divine masculine that space to just journey. That's what God does, right? So that's what the feminine represents, this compassion, this surrender to, okay, you're over here, I'm over here. That's wonderful. That's incredible. I see that you are in really like a dark night of the soul. I honor you. It's tough. You are strong, divine masculine. Like, look how much you have been through, how much you are still going through. I can see how dumb some of the shit you are doing is, but like still, wow, the strength that it takes to be in that, right? And if we can kind of embody that God self, that vision of our twin, for one, it'll cause a lot more harmony in the connection. And that is the point of attraction to calling your twin in, right? But if you're, hating on them, if you're calling them a fuck up, if you're shaming them because they're doing this or doing that or doing drugs or fucking this girl or doing whatever, like it repels love. It's like the repellent to God, to spirit, is judgment and criticism and shaming somebody for where they're at on their journey. Like, how would you feel? Let's think about this, divine feminines. How would you feel if you're in the middle of your dark night of the soul and God comes to you and is like, what the fuck are you doing? Figure it out. Don't you know better than to do that? And like shaming you, beating you up. Or do you want God to come over there and just like hold you, man? Because they see the journey that you're on, they see the pain, the hurt, right? But sometimes internally, the divine feminine is carrying so much hurt that she just wants like that relief, that medicine to my heartache, that medicine to my loneliness. And then they project that out onto the masculine, and that's what really causes like the separation between us. So embodying that compassion for your twin to just do their thing, man, they're gonna figure it out. And if they don't, like, God's gonna honor that too. You know what I mean? They're like a little kid in some ways, humans are. The point of like this whole planet, I feel like this whole experience is to evolve the minds of men, to evolve the consciousness of man. And I do want to mention, just because Spirit brought it up and it's really beautiful, what Spirit told me was originally when humans set foot on Earth, there was just dominant masculine energy, meaning just the mind of man, right? That's all man knew, was what man could see, what man could feel, what man could hear, what man could build. It was all the thoughts of man, right? But as he journeyed himself, as the human journeyed the earth, as the human journeyed themselves, then the evolution of the mind started to become more aware, present moment awareness, consciousness, right? So, in the beginning of the journey for humans, the feminine was something that they weren't even familiar with. This was an awakening to the divine feminine that happened. That's why I feel like in the Bible, they say that there was man and then woman was created through man. That was the breakthrough in humanity where man found and awakened to the connection with their soul, to the connection with spirit, right? So you got to give the divine masculine a little slack sometimes. Like, it's a journey, baby. And that's the one thing, if you take anything from what we've said today, is just go on the journey. We think that there's some grand reward at the end of the rainbow, but when you're observing as the God self, when you're observing as spirit, as the divine feminine, you see that the reward is being on the journey and being present and all the little sensations that this world has to offer. It's a gift, it's a blessing in disguise, right? So just go on the journey.
The journey is the destination. So often we're traveling to get to that endpoint, to get to the carrot at the back of the stick. And really the journey is the destination, which is so annoying to hear. Like, it's one of those things that I say, and I'm like, I know in my spirit that it's the truth, but I know it's obnoxious to hear, right? It's like, just love yourself. It's like, shut up, Lauren. It's like, damn, like, what do you mean the destination is the journey? Like, because it's frustrating, because we're always working towards like a particular end. And when you were speaking, they said something in my head. They said a few bad apples, right? So often we experience like a few negative energies. Like, if, you know, we date a few rough guys, or you date a few rough girls, right? You know, we can also include, you know, non-heterosexual relationships in it as well. And you know, something was really beautiful to me in the spirit of unity is I had heard a non-binary person, and they had explained divine energy as divine passive and divine active as divine feminine and masculine, right? Because so often we have trouble identifying those energies within ourselves. And when I was in college, I minored in women and gender studies. So people thought that that was all like bra burning and all of that kind of stuff. But so often we talked about things like suffrage, of course. We talked about intersectionalism within women of color and migration patterns. But we also talked a lot about men. We talked a lot about the patriarchy. And it wasn't just burn the patriarchy, but the patriarchy's, the societal institutions, their effect on men. And that goes into having compassion for the male experience, that you know, you come in with a few rough energies, and then you blanket statement all men, right? All girls are hoes and men ain't shit. And it's like, again, it's all that separation energy. And we forget that the same things that these societal institutions have imparted on us have also been imparted upon the masculine, that they have never been able to truly be able to express themselves, express their softness, express creativity in a variety of ways. That their value is, you know, women's values are their ability to be domesticated and their ability to be pleasing and all of that kind of stuff. But men, their entire value and worth is based off of what kind of job they have, what they're able to provide. What is the house that you look like? If your house doesn't look a certain way, if your wife, if your kids aren't in the best clothes, then you're not a good provider. So that means you're not a good man. And what does that do to the male psyche? Right? I took dance. You took dance. All the little boys that wanted to go, all the kids in the school be like, he's gay. Maybe he was, but maybe he wasn't. And the fact is that he wanted to express himself in a different way than what was socially acceptable for boys to do, right? And so all of a sudden now he was feminized and he was considered to be weak or lesser than, as though just like women are considered to be weak and lesser than. And so often we forget the male perspective in so many ways that society has also abused them, has given them distorted perceptions about where their worth and their value comes in, that they're not lovable past their paycheck. And just like we're not lovable past our bodies. So if they can't make enough, if they can't provide enough, just like if we can't look a certain way, well, then no one wins. So it's a game. It's ring around the rosy. We all fall down, and it's a bunch of bullshit. And again, this breeds this separation consciousness that serves absolutely nobody. And I saw a comment in the chat, and I think it is important to remember that, again, you, like you said earlier, you can do all of the work and someone can still not act right. And I was there, and that comes from releasing control. And I said it in a stream a few days ago, I am not responsible for how other people use their free will. Your free will is yours. I have to honor your sovereignty. And so often we see the potential in people, We see the potential. I know who you could be. I know what we could be. I know what could happen, right? But potentiality and actuality are two different things. It's the same thing as taking these really esoteric spiritual concepts as theoretical, as abstract, and actually being able to practice them, tap into your own masculinity, to apply them. And so often we project a potentiality onto a person, onto a place, onto a thing.
Micromanaging.
110%. That may or may not be what their destiny is. Maybe they're supposed to go the next 15 years on the same cycle, and you're supposed to glow up and elevate and go to a whole new place and do a whole new thing, and that's okay too. But so often we leave ourselves constricted and limited by waiting for someone else to actualize the potential that we've projected onto them, not knowing whether or not they want to play ball with that perspective. And then we want to turn around and grow bitterness and resentment in our spirits. And this could go on either side of the board, but grow bitterness or resentment in our spirits for that person because they wouldn't submit to what we've decided was good for them, or what we decided they were supposed to do, right? And I know you know just as well as I do, bitterness, resentment, and unforgiveness, that blocks your own blessings. And you sit there going, God, where's my person? And God goes, well, you're still damning that person from the past because they wouldn't do what you wanted them to do. Why don't you get right with yourself? Why don't you come and do the whole red bone? Come and get your love from the main vine. Why don't you experience real sacred love, protection, provision that I provide you as creation? You're an extension of me. You're talking about you want a divine love. You're running around acting all kinds of crazy out here, right? So again, we have to keep the male perspective on what society has done to them. And there's a difference between separation and physical distance. You can energetically be connected with someone, sending them love, sending them healing, sending them the best possible intentions. It's just like in the Bible, how they say, if someone wrongs you, you pray for them. You don't send them negative intentions. You don't try and force your will upon them. You're not God. We're God creators. We're conscious co-creators. We're extensions of creations, but we are not the creator. Last time I checked, I didn't put the moon and the stars up there every night. I don't turn the lights on like the Motel 6. God's in charge of that person. God takes care of me. He makes sure that I'm good. He gives me my homework assignment every week. So I'm going to trust that he's going to do it for the person over there. That's not my job, how you spend your free will. But I'm going to hold positive space for you. I can hold space for you while you also being out of my physical space. Because maybe God's going to take you on another journey that I don't even know about. And maybe by releasing to God's will for your life, I can really fully step into God's will for my life. And then realize why some prayers don't get answered. Sometimes you don't get what you want because there's better for you. You don't know that until you surrender to that. You try and align your will with divine's will and trust that they know what you want better than you do sometimes.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Can't tell you how many nights I spent crying on the floor. Please, this man. I know he's my one. I know he's my lobster. Years later, go, thank you for not answering that prayer. Out of all the prayers, I thank you especially for not answering that one, because I see now why you left me on red. Like that particular petition, I understand, right? But so often we think we know better, right? And that's okay, but it is a process. There's a lot that is involved in it, but you can hold positive space, intention, love for someone, and also keep yourself at a physical distance if it means maintaining your worthiness and maintaining your sense of self-love and nurturing your body. Stress, anxiety, overthinking, just like you were saying, it affects the body, it affects the vessel.
Absolutely, it does. And another thing that's important to mention, like when it comes to the twin flame journey, just like you said, I thought somebody was my twin flame too, y'all, and you could not tell me that they weren't. You know what I mean? But I got to a point where it was just like, it was torture, man. It was torture thinking about them. It was torture missing them. It was torture feeling separate from them. It was torture, trying to figure out if they were going to figure shit out and when it was going to come together, and just like, it was torture, man. And, what really helped me kind of relieve myself from that demonic ass energy, because it is, man. It sucks the life out of you. It sucks the inspiration, the passion out of you when you're so fixated on one thing, one person being your end all be all. So, what I like to encourage twins to do is when it comes to your twin flame and you feel like you know who they are, always leaving the door open for a higher perspective. Because there were some, and that's what I did, and it worked for me. And this was by the grace of God that I just obeyed what my soul was telling me. Just let go a little bit, Brooke. Just go on the journey, okay? And I remember, as I was healing and awakening to the twin flame journey, and I thought I knew who my twin was, but they were with somebody else. They committed to somebody else, chose somebody else over me, right? It hurt. But then I kind of started to open up again. And I was like, okay, I have really no choice but to just live my life. And because of that one conscious decision to just live for Brooke, you know, to allow love in whatever form spirit wants to send it to me, I had some really, really beautiful connections with like a soulmate. He was a Pisces. And I remember like being with him was just this divine experience where like we made love to each other. You know what I mean? Not just sexually, but like mentally, emotionally. It was like this sexual healing, this sacred destined connection came into my life to really boost my journey, to open myself up again and to see the reflection. I'm getting emotional because it was so touching to me. It still touches me now. Where like God sent me who I needed at the time, and I needed to love myself. I needed to have fun. I needed to find the pleasure in life again, because for a long time, that pleasure was sucked out of my life, man. On every aspect. Lost my job. My friends and I started to go on different journeys, lost my relationship. I lost my best friend in a car accident. Like it was just one thing after another, and I closed myself down. But God sent me this gift of a soulmate to open my heart again to love, right? And you'll miss out on those, you guys. You will miss out on those if you are so fixated on only accepting love from your twin. I'm not going to accept any other connection. If I go and find pleasure with someone else, then am I cheating on my twin flame? Like, no, baby. That's the gift of this experience, is you get to experience other people, other souls. You get to experience infinite ways of love to touch you, to, pleasure you. And I think it's just really important for people to understand that if it's a twin flame, if it's a soulmate, if it's a karmic, there are blessings riddled all in it if you are open enough to receive it. If you're open enough to just go on the journey and really just kind of embrace what is before you, who is before you, surrendering to the present moment.
It's beautiful and so beautiful. And I think so much of that is, they always say a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And you don't really know. And I feel collectively as well, so much of what is being asked of us is to release expectations of outcomes, right? So often we toil over like what the worst possible outcome of everything is. And we run our bodies down just energetically doing that. And sometimes people come in, there are people that have come in and I thought they were just going to be like in and out, and they stayed for a while. And there are people that I thought were going to stay for a while, and turns out they were in and out, and I would be upset or I'd be in pain. And then I'd realize after the fact, oh, like that was a really valuable lesson that I needed as well. And I would really love your perspective on this, because there was a day, and I made a video about this a while ago. There was a day and I was like, just like break down this whole twin flame thing for me. I was like, and that's probably my false flame, like hurt coming out. And I was like, I don't understand. I was like, I need you to break it down for me in a way that I can understand. Like, all of these different like relationships and kind of how you categorize them. And for me, they gave me the concept of ships and anchors. that most relationships comprise of one ship, someone that's a little bit more ascended, right? They're a little bit more buoyant. They're a vessel for like a lot of divine information revelation. And then someone else is an anchor, not in a bad way. You need an anchor on a ship. Otherwise, it'll just float away and you don't get to where you're going. And it's this beautiful balancing act between the two, someone that's like a little bit more ascended and someone that's like a little bit more grounded. And between them, the ship kind of makes the anchor a little bit more buoyant. It allows them to flow a little bit, whereas the anchor allows the ship to kind of have a little bit more stability. So I find that most people end up in like soulmate relationships, right? And that's kind of the balance. Whereas the more karmic relationships, they related it to me as like two anchors, right? No one's bringing anyone up, and everyone's kind of just like at the lower frequency, which serves its purpose. But and they can called it like a lot of like parasitic, right? Like there's a lot of negativity you can take on, a lot of
trauma bond.
You take on a lot of pain and trauma doing that. And then they explained to me kind of twin flame situations as being like two ships, right? Two separate individual vessels, right? That are traveling on the same trajectory, equally buoyant. They're their own vessel, and they called it a royal fleet, right? Royal fleets used to go on missions, very much like how twin flames go on spiritual missions. And what they explained to me is oftentimes people get a little surprised because they're looking for their twin flame, and sometimes they come across it and then realize that it's not romantic, that their twin flame may already be married, they already may have kids, they already may have a whole life set up, and that oftentimes some of these like divine counterparts actually come together for spiritual work, for revelation. Sometimes it's professional, but sometimes it's not always romantic as well. So I thought it was interesting to get your perspective on that. I also know that a lot of people say that twin flames are two halves to one soul. And what I had channeled, what they had brought through to me is everyone is their own individual soul. They are almost nearly identical souls, like regular physical twins, right? They have their own souls, but they're physically pretty much identical. So I'm just wondering like what your perspective is on that.
Interesting. Okay. So first, I want to mention that, like, when you kind of get into the twin flame dynamic, where you get kind of your insights from is what other people have already put out there. So you're tapping into this stream of consciousness, right? And it's bringing in thought forms, it's bringing in belief systems, it's bringing in structures that have already been created, right? But as you kind of journey, you break down the different ideas and you get to the core purpose of the twin flame journey. So for whatever reason, this is probably weird as fuck because I'm a twin flame, but it just rubs me the wrong way when I have to identify love as like a soulmate or a karmic or a twin flame, because
Limitation.
all of those, you know what I mean? I am a soulmate to my twin. I am a partner. I am a professional partner to my twin. I'm a friend. I'm a karmic. I'm a twin flame. You know what I mean? And what's interesting with the whole twin flame thing, so let me bring it back.
There's so many ideas, like there's so many perceptions of it, and it's like the limitation of the labels. It makes it so difficult for people to understand from, like, again, curiosity, kind of like, so what is this really?
So the purpose, once you break down all of the ideology of the twin flame journey, you see that it's not a relationship at all. It's not a destined connection at all. It is a structure that was built to give to humans. So they have something, some kind of tool, some kind of system that is functioning that allows them to learn how to stand in unity consciousness. It's not that it represents a relationship or a divine counterpart. It represents the vision for this planet, right? To be able to bridge gaps between soulmates, twin flames, karmics, and to see them all as one, as equal, as equally serving, right? So to me, that is the point of the twin flame journey. It's not to even, I used to believe in the whole one soul, two different bodies. I don't know. to me, like at first, like that sounds really cool. But like if you get to a point where it's like, does that really matter on my journey? What service does it offer to me to know that we're one soul in two different bodies? How do I implement that productively? You know what I mean? What value does that knowledge, does that idea give me on my journey? Nothing. Throw it out. You know what I'm saying? It's fun and it's beautiful to consider, but the reason at one point, sure, yeah, but now it's just like, it doesn't even matter. I don't want to spend my time journeying an idea that isn't going to serve me in the long run, right? So I think the most important thing to understand when it comes to the twin flame journey is the purpose is to be, right? That's the divine feminine. She is the beingness, right? And then the human is the doing, right? You got the being with the doing, right? So, fuck, where was I going with that? I had something. Don't you hate when they
I love and I appreciate you so much structuring it like that, because it really, again, it's almost the projection versus the actualization, or the potential versus the actualization that I was talking about before. It's really showing the reality versus the very whitewashed, romanticized version of it. Like, I just love the distinction that you made there.
I know, and I kind of, it sucks kind of, because I'm like, man, it sucks to crush someone's kind of fantasy that way. You know what I mean? It really does. But at the same time, understanding that it's not, it's the vision for the planet, it's bigger than a personal relationship, right? So like the feminine is that beingness, the masculine is the doing, right? So the point of the twin flame journey is to be in union with all, right? And to be able to express that unity consciousness on the human plane, every single soul. Can you imagine, right? That's kind of the trajectory. That was the purpose of the twin flame journey. So what's the mission? Purpose is just being in that love, being in that receptivity to spirit, being the bridge between man and God, right? And then the mission of the twin flame journey is the expression of that divinity, right? And it's so much more fun when you think about it that way, but it does kind of kill all of the fantasies that in the beginning are the driving force.
Yes.
It's almost like, this is how spirit said it to me, and take it as you will, but spirit was like, Brooke, we have to give people these self-absorbed ideologies of the twin flame journey just to get them to look at their shadow, just to get them to journey themselves. It's like we have to make it seem like there's this prize, but really, as you journey, as you awaken, kind of all that things fall apart. But with every rebirth, there is a death process that happens. And sometimes that can be kind of shattering to the identity in a way, but that's the journey, evolution of the psyche, the evolution of man, That's my take on it. That's where I function from.
I love how you break it down in such truly a sacred simplicity, because I'm like, wow, she really doesn't make it sound like, oh, it's just being and doing it. It's so simple. But then I think about it further and I'm like, wow, what pressure it is for real twin flames in union to actually have to be that example, right? Because when you said that of what that unity consciousness is, then I immediately thought in my head, I'm like, Hierophant. I'm like, you have to be two walking Hierophants in alignment as an example for other people. The pressure, I would never wish that on myself. I would never, that's too much pressure just for me to show up as just one, just as an individual being in alignment, trying to be a good leader and a good follower and a page and a sage. I'm like, to add another person onto this, that is so much pressure. And again, with the labels, because so often, and I've noticed it when you and Danny have been doing streams, even you guys walking back from that label a little much too, because then people, that's all they identify you as well. You're the twin flames. You're the twin flames in unit. It's very similar, and correct me if I'm wrong about their name, but I think it's Twin Flame Revolution on Instagram, and it's that's all they are, right? It's that's the label, and it's it steals so much from the personal identity in the
experience. I know, it does.
It's like I was saying at the very beginning of the stream about, you are such a catalog of gifts, of skills, abilities. So is Danny. It's your music and your frequencies and your meditations and the revelation. It's like you're so much more than just that. And so it's like when that is like the example that you have just like plastered over you, it allows other people to put you in a box as well. And then it's like all of this pressure to like be this example of unity consciousness. And sometimes you don't feel unified like with another or with yourself. And it's just like so many people, again, it's breaking the romanticism of it. It's like, I want my twin flame. I won't be left alone. Mostly, I just want like maybe just maybe one day just send like a good one, and like he'll just sit in the background and he'll just like be cool, and I'll just go out here and I'll just do this damn thing because it's like I gotta worry about myself. Now I gotta worry about you. We gotta be a good example to the public. Fuck that, like too much. It's just too much, Lord. Don't do it. And it's absolutely crazy. And so I feel like even with all of the blessings and the simplicity of it, there's also so much of you having to break outside of that label, break outside of that and be like, hey, I'm more than just a one-trick pony. You have so many more gifts, skills, and abilities, so much wisdom, advice, and guidance to give outside of that. And I know divine feminine and twin flame, and this is a lot of what the topic is today, and I'd love to have you back another day and talk about some other topics as well, because it's like there's so much revelation that you have even outside of this topic, but because you have that label, people, and some people feel adverse to that label, or some people are hyper fixated on that label. Right. It really like has people just like walking past blessings of revelation, like completely not exploring all of these other amazing aspects of you and Danny as individuals as well. So it's like it's so much pressure for you guys, and the way you're able to still break it down in such a sacred simplicity is incredible. Like hats off to you. Like I could never. That's why they put my ass on a different journey. They're like, Lauren, you just do your thing over there, just by yourself. You're just gonna be a menace to society. Like hats off to you.
Thank you, sis. I appreciate it. And that was kind of hard, man, because like that was one of the revelations that I had as a twin flame. I was like, okay, Spirit, you done gave me the twin flame shit. You know, you done told me I'm on a twin flame journey. Like, what the fuck is a twin flame journey? What does that mean? What does that mean to me? How do I harness it? Like, what? Right? And then Spirit gave me the revelation that, sure, bro, you're a twin flame. Empress of Duality, though, right? You are so much more than that. You are so much more than a twin flame, and you are so much more than a twin flame journey. And then that's what you embody on your journey, right? And that like really helped me kind of navigate. But yeah, this has been so much fun. I love how it's really nice and a really beautiful gift to be able to sit here in front of a soul that can actually receive and understand what I'm talking about, because so many beliefs on the twin flame journey, they're stuck in those. So when I speak from unity consciousness, it kind of just, you know what I mean? It goes over a little bit, or it triggers, so they resist. So they don't really get to kind of receive the energy from which Spirit gets me to speak from. So I want to thank you for that. It's been a long time that I've wanted someone to be able to witness me in all of, you know, what I came to understand, and like not be misunderstood. And it's really beautiful. So thank you so much. And thank you.
You're so welcome. I'm so grateful and blessed to be able to have a platform and be able to share this space and have really like much needed conversations about the dualities of the energies that live inside of us, and ask questions about things that so many of us, even in the spiritual community, that we don't know about, because again, it's theoretical versus application. Like I'm not in that journey, so I don't know. And a lot of people aren't as well. And this is like beautiful revelation. Like I'm here to catch a word today. And I'm so grateful that you came on. And again, like I said, I'd love to have you on another day and really expand the topics into other things as well, because I know you have so much more to share. The wealth of knowledge, revelation you have about that is abundant. But I also know that you have so many other things to talk about and to share and to speak on. And so I would love to have you come back on and give you the opportunity to talk about those things then too.
I love the bee community.
My bees are good. I love my bees. I'm sure a lot of them will catch it later on the replay, but the bees are good. And I know I was looking at the chat before, they're all very much loving you, and they're very much appreciating all the hot knowledge you be dropping on us today.
Thank you. And thank you all for
so welcome.
Everybody.
I love you very much. Thank you guys for being here. We very much appreciate you, whether you showed up in the chat or whether you're catching us in the replay later. We send you love. We send you blessings. And we will